Every summer I go camping with my uncle. He's done it his whole life, and recently I have gotten into it as well. I'm 16, and last year we found a new spot online while searching for a camping area to try out. There were no pictures, but the map was easy to follow, and the trail was described as easy and uncrowded. We set out on a Friday morning, parking on the side of the road and beginning down the trail. After the first quarter mile, it was clear the description wasn't accurate. It was steep in some parts, and a lot of the trail was muddy or overgrown, making it really hard. Already being there, we pushed through and eventually got to the campsite. It looked no different than the woods on the trail. Trees everywhere and just a plot of overgrown grass to set out stuff up on, with no cool views or anything. We pitched our tents and made lunch. My uncle was a bit of a talker, so the rest of the day we were just in conversation. As the sun started to set, we walked around the trees near the campsite and collected some dry sticks to make a fire. In the middle of our talking, we were interrupted by a loud voice behind us. We both stopped and spun around. The woods were suddenly quiet again, and we didn't see anyone. The voice had sounded not too far away, maybe a mile out. Neither of us said anything for 30 seconds, just staring at the trees and trying to spot any movement. Then it came again, a man's voice yelling. It sent chills through me. There was a pain and harshness to the scream, like they were in trouble. I looked up at my uncle, who looked really conflicted and worried. He turned me around and led me back to the campsite, quickly starting the fire. The screams kept coming, and eventually I asked if we should help them. I could tell my uncle was thinking of every option. He faced me and told me to stay by the fire and wait. His face was serious, and he said he was going to run a little ways toward the voice to see what he could see, and that if I saw anyone, not to let them near me. I agreed and watched him run toward the man's voice. After a minute, he was out of sight. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I would have done in his shoes. Leaving someone in need of serious help would make me feel horrible. But we were in the middle of the woods, and if something happened, well, I didn't know. After 10 minutes, I started to get a little worried. The sun felt like it was dropping fast, and there was still no sign of my uncle. Then suddenly the screaming stopped. The whole forest was quiet again. I wondered if my uncle had found him and was helping, or if something else had happened. Still, after another 10 minutes, my uncle was nowhere in sight. With a blanket of darkness starting to cover the forest, I grew more and more nervous. I stood up and walked a little bit away from the campsite toward where he had gone. There were still no signs of him, so I walked a little more. Then finally, I heard footsteps from up ahead. I still couldn't see anything, but as the sound of steps got closer and closer, an eerie, almost disturbing feeling came over me. Just before I thought they would come into sight, a voice to my left called my name. It was my uncle, running toward me and yelling to go back. There was urgency and worry in his voice, so I hurried to the campsite and he followed behind me. He quickly packed the essentials into his backpack. The look on his face is something I still remember vividly. It was complete fear and distraught. We left the tents and ran for the first mile, then fast walked back to our car. On the drive home, I asked what he saw out there, who the man was, and why he was screaming. He said nothing. Even to this day, he brings it up or says anything about what he saw. Every time I so much as mention that day, his entire demeanor changes and his face falls flat. So I just stopped asking. All I can think about now are those footsteps I heard walking toward me, and what would have happened if my uncle hadn't shown up in time.